So, James, let's go back in time to when the idea of doing this sort of stuff first occurred to you. So obviously you're a gadfly going all the way back. I actually saw tape of you today from almost 20 years ago back at Rutgers trying to get the board of Rutgers to ban Lucky Charms in order to not offend the Irish for St. Patrick's Day, and succeeding in that, apparently. So you were a gadfly and you were a prankster going all the way back to 2005. But how did this turn into sort of a journalistic crusade?
This is the very first thing I've ever done to this effect. I went into the vice president of Rutgers, St. Patrick's Day 2005, 18 years ago today, and I said that the leprechaun was offensive to my heritage. You could say I was a little ahead of my time. I'm not sure that irony would even work today. We were having this conversation this morning with my staff. I don't know. Is that even funny anymore? Is irony dead? But at the time, it was ironic, and the vice president of HR, a woman named Carolyn Knight Cole, with a straight face, took copious notes and said, "Can you tell me that again? How does the leprechaun offend you?" I said, "Well, it offends my heritage. As you can see, we're not all lucky. We have our differences of height." And I was trying to keep a straight face. I failed to. I actually laughed out loud. I turned it into a nervous cry. You can see it. I reposted it today. And they actually told me they would ban Lucky Charms. And I took out the campus speech codes, which said you can't offend anybody's heritage. And as an Irishman, I said, well, this offends my heritage. So it's sort of like making them live up to their own book of rules, and they're damned either way, because if they don't ban Lucky Charms, they're going to break their own law. If they do ban Lucky Charms, they become a laughing stock on campus. And that dichotomy is what launched what I would call Veritas Visuals, which eventually became Project Veritas. So yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years. You might ask, what prompted me to do that? I don't know. I guess it was the artist in me wanted to bring things to light and to expose things for what they were. What prompted me to do that? I was a thespian in high school. I was a person who did like to read the newspapers, and I watched local news, and I was very contemptuous of what I saw, and I wanted to do something about it. So that was the genesis.
People are raving about Genucel skincare. Sherry from Omaha, Nebraska says, I have sensitive skin. I'm careful about all products. My husband bought me Genucel bags and puffiness and Genucel deep firming serum. I felt it working immediately. My eyes look amazing. My face feels smooth and wrinkle-free. Well, it's not just Sherry. Genucel has sold over 1 million products to both women and men across the nation. Say goodbye to fine lines, wrinkles, and even those annoying under-eye bags. Genucel will have you looking 5, 10, even 15 years younger just in time for warmer weather. Best of all, Genucel guarantees results in as little as 12 hours or your money back. So I've been using Genucel myself because I'm not getting enough sleep. I get the bags under the eyes. Genucel makes that clear up for me. Try it yourself. Get Genucel's most popular package, including their classic under-eye bags and puffiness treatment, for 70% off at Genucel.com/Shapiro. You'll get free shipping plus a luxury beauty box containing 2 free gifts with every subscription. Go to Genucel.com/Shapiro. That's GENUCEL.com/Shapiro. If you can make your face look better, why not just do it? Genucel.com/Shapiro. That's Genucel.com/Shapiro. Go check them out right now. So let's start for the story. You know, you and I know the story because we were there, but why don't you tell the story for people who don't know the story of the Acorn videos? Because that's really when you first broke into sort of the American public imagination, breaking the series of videos demonstrating that a very highly networked Democratic front group was in fact engaging in what would have been illegal activity if you'd actually been not an undercover journalist, but actually had been the thing that you purported to be. So why don't you first explain to people, because it's been a long time, what exactly Acorn was doing, how you decided to go after Acorn, how that story developed, and then what your relationship was with our friend Andrew Breitbart.
Yes, and I wrote a whole book about this, so I'll try to summarize it in a New York minute. Acorn was the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now. Barack Obama was an attorney for Acorn. I didn't even know what Acorn was. I'm sure many of you may not remember or don't know, but they did housing. They got federal money to assist low-income people with housing, and they also helped with voter registration. So I was doing what I was doing now on a much tinier scale. I was 24 years old. I think I knew you, Ben, or knew of you, and you had shared some work I did on Planned Parenthood. I sent messages on Facebook to random citizens, and one of them was named Hannah Giles. She was a young woman who was an intern for a group called YAF. And I said, Hannah, maybe you should do this sort of work. And she said, James, why don't we go into Acorn? And she actually proposed that she dress up like a prostitute and do a secret shopper sting. And I said, well, I'll be a pimp. And we thought this would be novel because they were engaged in various law breaking, so it was alleged. So we thought, what an ingenious idea. Go in and present yourself as lawbreakers with this sort of hilarious agitprop, punk rock, Borat, Mike Wallace sort of thing. I had a camera embedded in my tie. It was a pinhole camera with a wire into my pocket. These cameras were different about 15 years ago. And there was no Amazon where you can buy them. And I recorded in Baltimore this lady telling me, I was scared to death, and my heart was beating 180 beats per minute because I'm saying outrageous stuff about underage hookers, and I'm going to use the money to do illegal things. And she told me how to lie on my tax forms and classify the underage girls, all of which I was just making up, but she didn't know that. She said, call them dependents on your tax forms and lie to the government and don't let the police catch you. We released, I met Andrew Breitbart. I went to his home in Los Angeles, knocked on his door, showed him the tapes, and we became kind of a dynamic duo. He told me, release the tapes one at a time. The media will say it's an independent, isolated incident. They did do that on day one. CNN said it was isolated. They released the second, third, fourth, and fifth tapes. And Ben, by the fifth tape, the House of Representatives, democratically controlled, voted to defund Acorn. The Senate voted 83-7. This is a democratically controlled United States Senate to defund Acorn, and Barack Obama signed that legislation, probably because he wanted to distance himself. But nevertheless, that's how the world has changed. You could never see a even Republican-led Congress defund anything, let alone a social welfare organization funded by your tax dollars. And South Park covered it. Jon Stewart covered it. This is a little bit of a different world 13 years ago. This is September 15th, 2009. And then everyone realized, wow, this sort of journalism works. It's funny. It's interesting. And Project Veritas was born.
So what was it like for you on a personal level? I know, obviously, you and I were a lot more anonymous when we first met, but, you became famous pretty much overnight. I mean, you went from being somebody that nobody knew to somebody that everybody knew. And that came with extraordinary levels of attendance attacks. I mean, you've been on the end of a number of tsunamis over the years. What was it like to first experience the tsunami of rage that came at you in the aftermath of the Acorn tapes?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the media. And we all know this because we're all astute observers of the press. So it's another thing to live through it. CNN called my phone that day like 70 times trying to get a hold of me. And Andrew Breitbart said, do not pick up that phone. They're going to personalize it. They're going to attack you. They're going to make the story about you. So I followed his advice, and I never picked up the phone from CNN reporters, and they couldn't personalize it. The Washington Post ran a story not about my revelations, but about who funded my investigation. Was it the Koch brothers? Was it the billionaires? Of course, there were no Koch brothers. I still haven't got funding from the Koch brothers. They're welcome to sponsor me if they're watching this. But there were no billionaire anything. It was literally as crazy as you can imagine. It was Hannah and I putting it on our credit card. I used my grandmother's chinchilla coat to be the pimp. So the media couldn't fathom this. They needed to personalize it. They needed to make it about this. They even wrote a story about where I got the video camera from. It was actually a Christmas gift from my mother. So and then I would say, Ben, the personal attacks became much more vicious. My Wikipedia page was vicious. They tried to claim the tapes were edited. And I remember I was 25 years old, sitting in front of my computer, literally tearing up about being presented in such a horrible way on Wikipedia. And there's really nothing I can do about it. I can't edit the Wikipedia page because they have like an army of people, I guess Media Matters or whoever it is, that's editing it right back to what it. So yeah, this is a really hard thing to digest, to accept. You have to accept it, and there are certain things that we can't control. And I just learned at a very young age, the only way is to just keep going, to keep putting out more stories. You're only as good as your next story, and that's what I did. Probably put out 1,000 investigations over the last 13 years, and every one of them they attacked me, and every time I said, I just got to keep going. Even recently, look at the last 45 days of my life. I was thrown out of the corporation that I founded and was the chairman of. And I said to myself, I just got to keep going. I got to start another organization. And this is, perhaps a life lesson embodied in the poem by Rudyard Kipling. If you can see the things you gave your life to broken and rebuild them with worn out tools. I've been through this a number of times, arrested, raided, sued, falsely accused, exonerated, vindicated. But you just sort of have to keep going. And I wish Andrew was alive. He died March 1st, 2012. I wish he was alive to see some of these things, but you were very close with him. I was close with him. And for the first 3 years of my journey, he was by my side when it came to this.